ආයුබෝවන් හැමෝටම අද පැවැත්වීමට නියමිත වෙන්නේ ඉකෝන් සෙමින එක. අද අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා ඉන්නේ ෆෙරෝසා බානු ආචාර්යතුමිය. ඒ වගේම කියන්න ඕනේ මේ වෙලාවේ මතක් කරන්න ඕනේ අපේ නැනපෝල් ෆවුන්ඩේෂන් එකේ නිර්මාතෘ අපේ ප්‍රභාත් නලින්ද සර්වත්. මොකද එතුමන්ගේ සංකල්පයක් යටතේ තමයි මේ වැඩසටහන් සියල්ල ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම උසස් පෙළ සියලු විෂය ධාරාවන් විෂයවන් වලට සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විෂයන් වලටත් අපි දේශන කිරීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම කියන්නේ එතුමාගේ දරුවන්ගේ අනාගතය දෙසා කරන මේක මහඟු සත්කාරයක් කියලාත් මේ වෙලාවේ කියන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේම කියන්න ඕනේ Zoom ඔස්සේ සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න බැරි නම් අද සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න නොහැකි අයට පුළුවන් ආපහු YouTube ඔස්සේ අපේ නැනපවුර YouTube channel එක ඔස්සේ ඔයගලන්ට අද දේශනය බලන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙනම් මගේ මේ ආදරණීය ඇරියුම ෆිරෝස් සබානු ආචාර්යතුමියටයි. Good morning ma'am.
Good morning, Miss. And a very good morning to all the students here. Okay. Okay. Hello, my dear students. Today we are joined here to learn about an interesting topic in economics. Okay. We all know that economics is a subject which studies the human behavior. It is a social science. As human beings, we have many needs and wants. To survive, we have to fulfill our needs and these unlimited wants. As households, we are demanding several goods and services now, such as food, clothes, furniture, stationeries, education, healthcare, etc. Like this, you can list your goods that you are demanding as well as the services. Okay, ma. These goods and services are provided, or we can call it as supplied by the firms which are operated in the market. And by allocating the scarce resources, that means limited resources efficiently. Right. Now, we can realize that one party, that means we are demanding the goods, and there is another party, we can call them as firms. They're supplying the goods. Right. In this lesson, we are going to learn about this demand and supply. Okay, so we'll move to the slides. Zaki. Zaki. Zaki.
මිස් අපිට මිස්ව ඇහෙන්නේ නැහැ. මිස් අපිට මිස්ව ඇහෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Share இல்லம்மா. இல்ல நீங்க ரொம்ப டென்ஷன் ஆகும்.
Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. Okay. Yes, sorry for the inconvenience, students. Can you all see my slides? Can you all hear me? Yes, okay. We'll move to the slides. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about the demand. Okay, at first we'll see what is a demand. In a certain period of time, when other factors remain constant, various quantities ready to buy at various prices of a good is called demand. Okay, now you can define the term demand, I think. The idea of the demand is in a certain period of time. That means at a particular period of time when other factors remain constant. various quantities ready to buy at various prices of a good is called a demand. And as next point, we have to discuss about effective demand. Yes, so here, when you go to a shop, you will demand so many things. The first thing, you have to prefer the good. The first thing, you have to prefer the good. So after that, Tuma, you need the purchasing power. These are the two main conditions or two main factors needed to create an effective demand, the preference and the purchasing power. For an example, you are preferring a good, but you don't have enough money or you don't have the purchasing power to consume the goods. Then you won't create an effective demand. Same like that, you are having the purchasing power, but you don't like the good. You are not preferring the good. So at this situation also, you want to create an effective demand. So if you want to create an effective demand, it's very important to fulfill these two conditions. Okay, next we'll see what is a quantity demand. Okay, so here, the quantity demand is the amount of product people are willing to buy at a certain price is called quantity demand. Quantity demanded is represented by a single point on the demand curve. Now, later on, we'll draw a demand curve. Then you will understand how to draw a demand curve. Right. So if you want to show the quantity demanded, it is represented by a single point on the demand curve. At a particular point, what is the quantity demanded? That's why here I'm highlighting the words. In the demand, I'm highlighting the word various prices. And in the quantity demand, I'm highlighting the word certain price. I'm underlining the word certain price. So when you're talking about or when you're defining the quantity demand, you have to define it as at a particular price or at a certain price, the amount ready to purchase by the consumers is called quantity demand. So I hope you can understand the difference between demand and the quantity demand. And also, I hope you can understand the conditions which are to be fulfilled to achieve the effective demand. Okay, now there are two types of demand, individual demand and the market demand. Okay, now first we'll discuss what is an individual demand. At a certain period of time, the various quantities ready to buy by a person at various prices of a good is called individual demand. We know that in the market, there are a number of individuals. They're ready to consume the same good. So by each and every individuals, the demand is created. So such demand is identified as individual demand. Okay, the demand created by each and every individuals. It is called individual demand. Next, we'll discuss what is a market demand. A market demand is the addition of all these individual demands at a certain period of time, various quantities ready to buy by all individuals at various prices of a good is called market demand. Simply, we can call this as addition of individual demand. If we add all the individual demands in the market, so it is called the market demand. Right. As now, in this table, it's very clearly defined the individual demand and the market demand. Right. If you observe this table, now you can see here in the first column, I'm mentioning the price of goods, price of the good X. Then you have different prices, 5, 10, and 15. In the second column, I'm mentioning the demand of this good created by person A. In the column 3, I'm mentioning the demand created by person B for this good. In the column C, I have in next column, I have mentioned the quantity demand created by person C. So here, if you observe this table, when the price is 5, A person ready to buy 6 units and B person ready to buy 8 units and C person ready to buy 15 units. So altogether, when the price is 5, the market demand for this product is 29. So like that, you can check the other demands also. So these are called individual demand, and here if you add all the individual demand at various prices, so you can create the market demand. So this is the idea of individual demand and the market demand. Okay, now we'll move to the next point of our theory, that is the determinants of demand. The demand is determined by several factors. I said that there are two types of demand. One is individual and the other one is market demand. Right. So here, when you're talking about the individual demand, so here you can see the determinants. Price of the concerned good, that means the price of the particular good. If you are talking about the X good, then the price of X good. If you are talking about the price of Y good, then the price of Y good is the particular good or concerned good. Next is price of other goods. That means there are a number of goods in the market. There can be substitutable goods or they can be joint goods. Okay, so we have to consider about that also. Next is consumer income. That is the income obtained by the consumer. It also determines the demand. If you are having more income, then you can demand more goods. If your income is decreasing, then your demand also will decrease. Next is the consumer taste. That is the preference of the consumers. So here, Uma, if you are preferring a good, then you will demand more. If you're not preferring the good, then you won't demand. Next is future expectation. That means you are expecting in the future the price going to be increased, or in the future the price going to be decreased. So at this situation also, your demand will change, and some other factors which are not classified in this. Okay, so here in the next column, I have mentioned the determinants of market demand. Here I have mentioned a determinant in red. Number of buyers. So this is the difference between the determinants of the individual demand and the determinants of the market demand. When you are defining or when you are giving the determinants of market demand, you have to include the number of buyers, because in the previous slide, I showed you that market demand is the addition of all the individual buyers, all the individual demands. So therefore, the number of the buyers also determines the market demand. So now you know how to list the determinants of demand. Yes. Now, as our next step, we'll try to write the demand function. The demand function shows the relationship between demand and its determinants. Now you know that there are two types of demands, individual demand as well as the market demand. Then now we can write down the individual demand function. That means we are writing, I have given the short forms for the determinants, P for price of the concerned good and PN for price of other good. Y is the income of the consumer. T is the preference or the taste of the consumer. EX is the expectation and the other reasons for all. Right, okay. Now, you can write down the demand function. This demand function is showing the relationship between demand and its determinants. So here, next, I'm writing the market demand function. So the market demand function is written like this. So in this case, I'm writing the number of buyers also because it is also a determinant. So you are writing the determinants of demand as an equation. So this is simply I can be identified as demand function. Okay, now we'll move to the next slide. That is the types of demand. Here again, we have to discuss about 3 types of demand. The first is price demand. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about this part, that is about the price demand. Furthermore, you can discuss about the cross demand as well as the income demand in future. Right. First, we'll see what is a price demand. That means price demand explains the relationship between the demand of a particular good and its price, while all the other determinants remain constant. Here, we have to assume that only the price of the particular good is changing. All the other determinants remain constant. That means the price of other good, income, taste, etc. All the other determinants remain constant. Only the price of the good is concerned, good is changing, right? So it explains that the demand of a particular good is determined by its price. So we are going to discuss about this in today's lesson. And if I give you an explanation regarding the cross demand, here the cross demand explains the relationship between the demand of a particular good and the price of other good. Demand of a particular good is determined by price of other good, while all the other determinants remain constant. At this situation, you have to assume that price of the particular good also remain constant. So in the case of income demand, here you have to assume that the income of the consumers or income of the buyers is changing. So the demand is determined. So here the demand is determined by the income of the consumers, while all the other determinants remain constant. Here also you have to assume price of the particular good as well as other goods price and all other determinants except income remain constant. So we are going to discuss about the price demand in this lesson. Right. Yes, now we are moving to the important section in today's topic. That is the law of demand. Right. So there is a negative relationship between price of a particular good and its quantity demand. Here, there is an inverse relationship. When price of a good increases, the quantity demand will decrease. We all know that the consumers, we are rational. Okay, so therefore, when the price of a good is increasing, we will reduce the demand of that good. When the price of a good decreases, we will increase the demand of that particular good. So this is identified as law of demand, right? So here I'm clearly mentioning that when price increases, the quantity demand decreases. Price of X good is increasing, so the demand for that good is decreasing. When price decreases, the quantity demand will increase. That means when price of this X good decreases, its quantity demand is increasing. So it is showing a negative relationship. This is simply identified as law of demand. This is the idea of law of demand. This exists for normal goods. Next, we can discuss the assumptions of law of demand. We are using several assumptions to explain the law of demand clearly. We are using several assumptions, right? Okay. So the assumptions are considered price and quantity demand at a certain time period. Here at a particular time period only we are considering, right? Next one, Except price, all the other determinants remain unchanged. At the beginning, I said we are going to talk about the price demand. In the price demand, you know that only the price is changing. Price is the one and only changing factor of the good. So therefore, except price, all the other determinants remain unchanged. And the next assumption is, here we are considering the demand of a normal good. Now here, there are a different sort of goods. Luxury goods are there, different goods are there, right? Essential goods are there, different sort of goods are there. Now, to explain the law of demand, we are considering the normal good. And the next is, the buyers are always rational. And next, we can discuss the reasons for the law of demand. Right. Now we'll see the reasons of the law of demand. Why this law of demand is created? Why this inverse relationship between price and quantity demand is created? Right. Okay. So here, there are two main reasons for the law of demand. The first reason is identified as substitution effect. The first reason is identified as substitution effect. Let's see what is substitution effect. Here, you have to remember one thing, only the changing factor is particular goods price. When the price of a particular good, here I'm taking X good as the particular good. So when the price of X good increases in the market, its substitutes seems to be cheap in the market. Substitutes means the goods which are giving the same utility, the goods which are giving the same benefit. Then the substitutes become cheap in the market. So therefore, the people, those who are purchasing the particular good, tend to buy the substitutes. So automatically, demand for the X good will decrease in the market. Yes, we can see the next one. That is, here now the price of X good is decreasing in the market. If the price of X good decreases in the market, the substitutes seems to be expensive in the market. So those who are already purchasing the substitutes will tend to buy the particular good. So the demand for the good will increase in the market. So now you can very clearly understand a negative relationship is created. When the price of the good increases, the demand of that good is decreasing. When the price of the good decreases, the demand of that particular good is increasing. This is happening because of the substitution effect. So now, substitution effect of a normal good always shows negative relationship when price of a good increases or decreases. Okay, always the substitution effect is negative. This is the one reason for the law of demand. There is another reason. It is called income effect. It is called income effect. Right. Now we'll see what is an income effect. Here also, students, you have to be very careful. Only the changing factor is price of the concerned good. It is the one and only changing factor in this situation. So when you're talking about the income effect, again, the particular goods price is increasing. Therefore, the purchasing power of the consumers or the real income of the consumers is decreasing, right? That means due to the price increment, your purchasing power or the ability to purchase goods and services is decreasing. So therefore, the quantity demand is also decreasing. Now, if you see the price decrement situation, at this situation, price of the X good is decreasing. At this situation, the purchasing power of the buyer or the purchasing power of the consumer is increasing. Now you have more ability to purchase because the price is decreased. So the quantity demand for this particular good also will increase. So now again, a negative relationship is created when the price of X good increases due to the downfall in your purchasing power. The quantity demand for that good is also decreasing. When the price of X good decreases due to the improvement in your real income or due to the improvement in your purchasing power, the quantity demand of the X good is also, or the demand of the X good is also increasing. So this negative relationship is created because of the income effect. Now, always the income effect shows a positive relationship. There is a positive relationship for a normal good. Okay, now I think you can understand the reasons of law of demand. There are two main reasons, substitution effect and the income effect. Right, okay. Yes, okay. Now we know what is a law of demand. Now we are going to represent the law of demand. Now we can use three methods to represent the law of demand. Simply demand schedule or table. And the second method is demand curve. And the third method is demand equation. First, we'll see the demand schedule or the table. So this is the demand schedule or the table. One column, in the first column, I'm mentioning the price of the particular good. And in the second column, I'm mentioning the quantity demand of the particular good, right? Okay, so by observing this table, it's very clear, or you can very clearly understand that when the price of the good increases, the quantity demand is decreasing. The price is 0, the demand is 100. That means when the price is equal to 0, the consumer is ready to buy 100 units. When the price is 2, now the consumer is ready to buy 80. So like this, when the price increases, the quantity demand is gradually decreasing. So you can draw this in the demand curve. You can draw this as a curve. In this axis, I'm mentioning the price of the given good, and this axis is showing the quantity demand of the particular good. After that, I'm plotting all the points. So always a demand curve is a downward sloping curve. Always it's a downward sloping curve. This is the demand curve for a normal good. So next, we can discuss about the demand equation. It's very important to understand the demand equation clearly, right? We'll see the demand equation. So the quantity demand is equal to A minus BP. So this is the demand formula, or this is the demand equation. So QD stands for quantity demand and A stand for quantity demand when price is 0. In our previous chart, you can take the A value as in the previous chart. So we can see that when price is 0, the quantity demand is 100. So here in this, according to that, the A value for that previous table is 100, right? So quantity demand when price is 0, and B stand for the slope of the demand curve. B stand for the slope of the demand curve. So here there is a minus sign. You must understand why we have put a minus sign here, because always slope of the demand curve is negative, because when price increases, the quantity demand is decreasing. And when price decreases, the quantity demand is increasing. That means there is a negative relationship. That's why here you have a minus sign. So always slope of the demand curve is negative. And the next one you can say as the price. Next is the price. Okay, now if you see the price here, okay, now the next one is the price. Price is actually here particular goods price. If you are talking about the X good, demand of the X good, then price of the X good, because you know that here one and only changing factor is the price of the concerned good. Now here, the price is simply identified as independent variable. It is changing independently in the market. And the quantity demand is identified as dependent variable because the quantity demand is depending on price. So quantity demand is identified as dependent variable and price is identified as independent variable. So this is your demand equation. Now, we'll derive the demand equation respect to this table. Right, I can give you a few minutes to derive the demand equation. You can try this. Right, so first you have to find the slope of the demand curve. First, you have to find the slope of the demand curve. So this is your demand equation. QD equals A minus BP. So first you have to find the B value. If you find the value B, or if you find the slope of the demand curve, along the demand curve, it won't change because you know that along the straight line, the slope won't change. So first we'll try to find the slope. To find the slope, the formula that you have to use is change in quantity demand divided by change in price. That means delta QD divided by delta P in simple. So the change in quantity demand, the difference between these two, 100 minus 80, or any one of you can take 80 minus 60. Or one of you can take 60 minus 40. The interval is same, 100 minus 80. So it is 20. Now you can see the difference between this price, 0 minus 2 or 2 minus 4 or minus 6, any point you can take. So the change in price is minus 2. So if you calculate the slope of this demand curve, it is minus 10. So as a next step, you can write down the demand equation, because here the A value, no need to calculate, it is mentioned or it is shown in the table. When the price of a good is 0, the quantity demand is 100. At the beginning, I said that the A is when price is 0, the value of the quantity demand. So directly you can substitute the 100 here. So we can derive the demand function, that is QD equals 100 minus 10P. This is the demand function respect to this table. Right, now I have given another table here. I have given another table here. You can try this. Yes, now you all can try to find out the demand equation. First, what you have to do? First, you have to find the slope of this demand curve. After that, you have to find out the value of A. Here, the value of A is not mentioned in the table. You have to find out the value of A. Okay, now we'll go for the answers. You can cross-check your answers also, right? So here, first you have to find out the slope of the demand curve. You have to find the slope of the given table. Here, the B is equal to the change in quantity demand. That means 400 minus 300 or 300 minus 200. And the change in the price, 20 minus 30 or 30 minus 40. So here it is minus 10. So the slope of this demand curve is minus 10. Now, the cutting point or the value of A is not mentioned in the table. It's not given in the table. So you have to find out the value of A. To find the value of A, you have to substitute any one of these pair in your demand equation. So here I'm taking the 20 and 400. One of you can take 30 and 300. Another one of you can take 40 and 200. Okay, no problem, but you have to get the same answer. The A should be here, it's equal to 600. Now I'm taking the first pair. That means when price is 20, the quantity demand is 400. Right, instead of QD, I'm substituting 400. Now I'm going to find the value of A. Then already I have found the slope. It is 10. So I'm writing the 10 here. And I'm taking the first category. So the price is 20. So 10 into 20, it's 200. Now, if you take this 200 to this side, then you know this simple calculation. Then A is equal to 600. Now you have derived the demand equation respect to this table. It is QD equals 600 minus 10P. Now I think you all can understand how to derive the demand equation if the table is given. And also you can draw the demand curve respect to this table. Right, okay. Now we'll move to the next topic, that is the exceptional demand. So here, up to now, I explained you about the law of demand. When price of a good increases, the quantity demand is decreasing. So this is occurred for the normal good. This is the situation for the normal good, but some exceptional situations are also there. We can observe a positive relationship between price of a particular good and its quantity demand. This is against the law of demand. Because of this, the demand curve slopes upward. So you can give some examples for exceptional demand, such as giffen goods and luxury goods are the examples for the exceptional demand. Okay, so if you draw the demand curve for the exceptional goods, if you draw the demand curve for the demand for such goods, the demand curve will be an upward sloping demand curve. It is against to the law of demand. Right. Now I'm going to show you the exceptional demand curve. Right. Now, our normal demand curve is a downward sloping curve. Our normal demand curve is a downward sloping curve. But if you draw an exceptional demand curve, it is an upward sloping curve. The demand curve will be like this. So here in this axis, we are mentioning the price. And in this axis, we are mentioning the quantity demand. So this is your exceptional demand curve. It is sloping upward. When price of a good increases, its quantity demand also increasing. This occurs for luxury goods and for the giffen goods. Okay, now again, we can talk about the demand change and quantity demand change. Okay, now students will move to another topic related to the theory of demand. It is demand change and quantity demand change. Right. Now, first we'll discuss what is a quantity demand change. What is a quantity demand change? Here, you have to assume that all the other determinants remain constant. Only the price of the particular good is changing. Therefore, the point is moving along the demand curve. The point R is moving along the demand curve. So this is simply identified as quantity demand change. For an example, now I am drawing a demand curve. I think you all can see my whiteboard. Right, now I'm drawing a demand curve. So this axis, you know, the price axis. And you know, this axis is named as quantity demand axis. And this is your demand curve. Now I'm going to mark a point. I'm going to mark a price. So we'll say the price is at here. Right. So, right, now we'll say the price of this particular good is, we'll say 20 rupees. When this price of this particular good is 20, the quantity demand is, we'll say 100 units. Okay, now as next step, our quantity demand, now as next step, our price of this particular good is increasing. When the price of a particular good increases, there is a negative relationship between price and the quantity demand, then your quantity demand is also decreases. Your quantity demand will decrease. So here, here, see, the price of the good is increasing. So therefore, the quantity demand is decreasing. Now you can give a value for this if you want. For an example, the price is increasing as 25 rupees. The price is increasing as 25 rupees. So therefore, the quantity demand is decreasing as, we'll say, 75 units. The quantity demand is decreasing as 75 units. So this is the change in quantity demand. Now here your demand is actually decreased due to the increment in the price. Next, I'm going to show you the price in decrement situation. Now I'm going to show you the price decrement. Now we'll say the price is decreases. We'll say the price is decreases as 15 or whatever. Now what's happening? The quantity demand is increasing because you know that there is a negative relationship between price and the quantity demand, because you know that there is a negative relationship. So here the price is decreasing. So therefore the quantity demand is increasing. You can give some value for this also. Right, now we'll say the price is decreasing as 15. So because of this, what's happening to your demand? The demand is decreasing as increasing as 125, we'll say. Right, now you can see the inverse relationship. That means the point is moving along the demand curve. The point is moving along the demand curve. Right? Can you understand that? At the beginning, the point was at here. When price is 20, the quantity demand was 100. Now the price is increasing as 25 rupees. So the quantity demand is decreasing as 75 units. As next step, the price is decreasing as 15 rupees. Because of this, the quantity demand is increasing from 100 to 120. 25. So this is identified as change in quantity demand, movement along the demand curve. The movement can be downward or it can be upward, right? If the movement towards the upward, what is happening here? If the movement towards the upward, we know that the demand is decreasing. So here the demand is decreasing. So here, if the movement along the downwards, then you know that the demand is increasing. So here, this situation is identified as demand contraction. This situation is identified as demand contraction. And this situation is identified as demand expansion. This is called demand contraction. And here, this situation is identified as the demand is increasing, the quantity demand is increasing. So we can call it as demand expansion. Demand is expanding. Demand expansion. Can call it as demand expansion. So here there is a decrease in quantity demand. There is an increase in quantity demand. So this is the simple idea of the quantity demand change. This is the simple idea of the quantity demand change. Now I think for all the students, it's clear about the quantity demand change. If you want to illustrate the quantity demand change, you have to move the point along the demand curve. To illustrate the quantity demand change, you need only one demand curve. You need only one demand curve, and the changing factor is the price of the particular good. So you can show the increment in the demand. You can show the expansion of the quantity demand, and you can show the contraction of the quantity demand. Okay, fine. So we'll move to the next. That is your demand change. Okay, that is your demand change. Again, I'm drawing a demand curve. Again, now I'm drawing a demand curve here. Right, okay, yes. This is your price axis. And this is your quantity axis. And you know that you have to name the axis and this as P, and you have to name this axis as QD. Right, okay. Now again, I'm drawing the demand curve. Now we'll see. This is your demand curve. Yes, now this is the demand curve. So to illustrate the demand change, you have to assume that the particular goods price remain constant. You have to assume that the particular goods price remain constant. For an example, we'll say price of this good is at here. Respect to this price, the quantity demand is at here. Respect to this good, the quantity demand is at here. So you can give a price if you want. You can give a price if you want. For an example, the price of the particular good is, we'll say 30 rupees. Okay, the price of the particular good will say 30. And respect to this price level, the quantity demand will say 120 units. Respect to this price will say the demand is 120. So here you have to assume that there's no change in the price. This won't change. There's no change in the price. It remains constant due to the change in the determinants. Already we have discussed about the determinants of the demand. Already we have discussed the determinants of the demand. Except price, some other determinants are changing. For an example, we'll say your income is changing. No change in the price of the particular good, but your income is changing. When the income changes, your demand curve can shift to the right or to the left. Your demand curve will shift to the right or to the left. For an example, now I am drawing another new demand curve here. That means your demand curve is shifting to the right, or sometimes your demand curve can shift to the left also. For an example, I'm going to draw like this. Now, your demand curve is shifting to the left. That means no change in the price. There's no change in the price due to the changes in your determinants other than price. The demand curve is shifting to the right or to the left. So this is called the demand change. So if you want to illustrate the demand change, it's very important to draw more than one demand curve. To illustrate the demand change, definitely you need more than one demand curve. So here, the demand curve is shifting to the right. So here, the demand curve is shifting to the left. Here, the demand curve is shifting to the left. Right, okay, fine. Right, so here the demand curve is shifting to the left. That means the demand is decreasing, but no change in the price. Now we'll see what's happening here. Now here, see, the price remain constant, but the demand is increased for this good. Price remain constant, but the demand is increased. Here, the demand is decreased, but at that situation, the price remain constant. There's no change in the price. There's no change in the price. Only the demand curve is shifting to the right. And here, the demand curve is shifting to the left. So when the demand curve shifts to the right, so the demand is increasing. So we can give a demand here. We can mention the demand is increasing as 150. We can say that the demand is increasing as 150. Right. So here we can say that the demand is decreasing. That means the demand decreases as 100. But here, no change in the price. There's no change in the price. Only the demand curve is shifting to the right or to the left. So this is identified as the demand change. This is identified as the demand change. Then if you want to illustrate the demand change, definitely you have to draw more than one demand curve. So if the demand is increasing, that means if the demand curve is shifting to the right, then it is identified as increase in demand. So if the demand curve shifts to the left, then it is identified as decrease in demand. Okay, so now again, we can go for the determinants. Yes. Now we'll see the determinants of the, now we'll say the factors which shift the demand curve to the right and the factors which shift the demand curve to the left. Now we know that the demand curve is shifting to the right as well as to the left when the demand change occurs. So we'll see what are the factors. So here you have to assume the particular goods price remain constant. So here if you see the factors which shift the demand curve to right. The first factor is increase in the price of substitutes. Now you know what are substitutes, okay? The goods which are giving the same satisfaction. Instead of one good, you can consume the other. For an example, instead of a Lux soap, you can consume a Velvet or any other brand. So those are identified as substitutable goods. So increase in the price of substitutable goods. If there is an increase in the price of substitutable goods, then the people, those who are already purchasing the particular good, will go to buy the substitutable goods. So therefore, demand for the the people, those who are already purchasing the substitutable goods, will tend to buy the particular good. So therefore, the demand for the particular good will increase. So same like that, if you talk about the complementary good, so these complementary goods can be identified as joint goods. So the complementary goods are the goods which gives the which are consumed to get the maximum benefit, the optimum benefit of a particular good. For an example, you can say a whiteboard and a marker. So if you are having a marker, you need a whiteboard. So those are complementary goods. So if there is a decrease in the price of a complementary good, then also demand of the particular good will increase while the price of the particular good remain constant. So if there is an increase in consumer income, then also you can demand more and more. Your purchasing power will increase. So you can have the ability to consume more and more. So without any change in the price of a particular good, your demand can shift outward or demand can shift to the right. So same like that, you can see the factors which are shifting the demand curve to the left also. If there is a decrease in the price of substitutes, if there is an increase in the price of complementary goods, if there is a decrease in the consumer income, if there is a decrease in the consumer preference, and if there is an expectation that the price will decrease in future, and if there is a decrease in the number of buyers, the demand curve will shift to the left. At this situation, you have to assume the price of the particular good remain constant always. So I think it's very clear about the demand change. And these are the factors which lead to shift the demand curve to the right or to the left. Right. So if you have any doubts, you can send a message in your chat box. Right, okay. Now we are moving to our next topic, that is our supply. So almost we have discussed very important points regarding the theory of demand. Now we are moving to discuss about the supply. Now we'll see what is a supply. At a certain period of time, the various quantities that the producers willing and able to provide to the market at alternative prices is called supply. At the beginning, I said that as households, we are ready to consume, we are ready to demand goods and services. Then there is another party. They are ready to supply the goods and services to the market. They are the suppliers. Okay, so at a certain period of time, the various quantities are ready to provided to the market by the suppliers at alternative prices. This is called supply. Now, there are two types of supply, same like your demand. Here, the institutional supply and market supply. These are the two types of supply. The institutional supply can be named as firm's supply also. Then the second part is the market supply. Okay, now we'll see what is an institutional supply. Right. At a certain period of time, the amount willing to supply at alternative prices by institutions or by firms in the market is called institutional supply. We know that there are several institutions or there are several firms operated in the market. So all these firms will supply the goods to the market. So this supply is identified as institutional supply. The goods provided or supplied to the market by institutions at alternative prices is called institutional supply or firm supply. Next is the market supply. The sum or the total of all institutional supply is called market supply. If we add all the institutional supply or all the firms supply together, so it is the market supply. Now, this table shows the institutional supply and the market supply. So here, the price of the good is given 10, 20, and 30. Supply of firm A, supply of firm B, and the market supply is mentioned in the last column. So if you see the supply of firm A, when the price is 10, they are ready to supply 30 units. The firm B, they are ready to supply 40 units. So the market supply of this product when the price is 10 is 70 units. Same like that, when the price increases as 20 rupees, the firm A ready to supply 50 units. The firm B ready to supply 55 units. Now the market supply is increased as 105 units. Yes, in the third price, now the price is increasing furthermore. Now the price is 30 rupees. Now the firm A is ready to supply 65 units and the firm B is ready to supply 75 units. So now the market supply is becoming as 140. So addition of the institutional supply is called the market supply. Right. Now, as our next point, we'll discuss the determinants of supply. Same like the demand, same like the determinants of demand, we have a list of determinants of supply also. The supply also determined by several factors, not only by the price of the good. Right. But basically, the supply is determined by the price of the particular good. That means price of the concerned good. And here, the next determinant is price of inputs or cost of production. The price of inputs or cost of production. To engage in the production activity, definitely you need the inputs, you need the raw materials. So there is a cost to obtain all these inputs. So therefore, the cost of production determines the supply. Next is the technology. If you can use some good technologies, you can uplift your supply. So the technology is determining the supply. If you are using the outdated technology, then the supply will decrease in the market. Next is price of related goods. So here also the price of related good is determining the supply. Next is expectation of producers. If they are expecting in the future the price of their product will increase, it will determine the supply of their product. So government policies, sometimes the government is implementing several policies such as taxation and subsidies. So such policies are also determining the supply. And I am mentioning the last one in red, number of producers. Okay, same like the determinants of demand, here also there is a small difference between the determinants of the firm supply and the determinants of the market supply. So here, all these are the determinants of the firm supply. All these are the determinants of the firm supply. If you want to write the determinants of the market supply, then you have to include the number of buyers, or number of producers or number of the suppliers also. Right. So now you can list out the determinants of the firm supply and the determinants of the market supply. Now we'll write down the function of supply. It is an equation which shows the relationship between supply and its determinants is called supply function, Now we have discussed there are two supply functions. We have discussed that there are two types of supply. One is firm supply or institutional supply, and the other one is the market supply. Right, now we'll write the firm's supply function. Supply is a function of its determinant, right? Price of the particular good, cost of production, technology, price of related good, future expectations, and the government policies and other reasons, other factors. This is identified as the firm's supply function. Next, I'm writing the market supply function. So in the market supply function, I'm using the number of producers also. I'm using the number of suppliers or the number of producers. So these two can be identified as function of supply. These two can be identified as function of supply. Right. Now we'll go to discuss about the law of supply. Now we'll go to discuss about the law of supply. Right. There is a positive relationship between price of a particular good and its quantity supply, while all the other determinants remain constant, is known as law of supply. Here, you have to assume that all the other determinants remain constant, such as technology, production cost, future expectation, everything remain constant. Only the price of the particular good is changing. So if the price of a good increases, the quantity demand also will, the quantity supply also will increase. Here, there is a by mistake, it should be quantity supply. And when price of good decreases, here also by mistake in my slide, a printing mistake, typing mistake, the quantity supply should decrease. Next, the reason for the law of supply. We can discuss the reason for the law of supply. Due to the law of increasing opportunity cost, that is increasing marginal cost, the law of supply is created. When the production of a particular good increases, the opportunity cost also increases. As the marginal cost increases with output, the producers tend to produce more only if the price of the good increases, because the producers have to cover increasing marginal cost. So at last, law of supply is created. So what is the reason for the law of supply? The law of increasing opportunity cost or increasing marginal cost is the reason for the law of supply. Right. Okay. So now we can illustrate or we can represent the law of supply by using three methods. The first one is table or the supply schedule, and the second one is supply curve, and the third one is your supply equation. So by observing this supply schedule, it's very clear the price is increasing. It's very clear the price is increasing 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So here the quantity supply is also gradually increases 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. So here the table shows a positive relationship. When the price increases, the quantity supply is also increasing, right? So now if you draw the supply curve, in this axis, you have to mention the price, and this axis, you have to mention the quantity supply. Then always supply curve is a upward sloping curve. So this is your supply curve. Always it is a upward sloping curve. Now we'll go to the third method, that is your supply equation. So QS is equal to A plus BP. So this is your supply equation. Then QS stand for quantity supply and A stand for quantity supply when price is 0 and B stand for slope of the supply curve and B for the price of concerned good. So here the quantity supply is a dependent variable and price of concerned good is the independent variable. The quantity supply is depending on the price of the particular good. So when the price of the good is changing, the quantity supply is also changing. So the quantity supply is identified as dependent variable and price is concerned as independent variable. Now I have given you a table here. Again, I have given you a supply table. I'm mentioning the prices. The price is 4, the quantity supply is 100. And when the price is 8, the quantity supply is increasing as 300. Now we can derive the supply equation for this table. Now we can find out the supply equation for this table. Right, okay. First, you have to find the slope of the supply curve. To find the slope of the supply curve, you have to follow the same formula. That means change in quantity supply divided by change in price. Then here, the change in quantity supply 100 minus 300. And the change in price is 4 minus 8. So the change in quantity supply is 100 minus 300. You're getting the answer in terms of minus. It is minus 200. So the change in price is 4 minus 8. So here you're getting the answer also in terms of minus. So minus divided by minus, minus 200 divided by minus 4. So the answer is 50. So always the slope of the supply curve is positive. It is 50. Now you have to find out the value of A. Now you have to find out the value of A. It is not mentioned in the table. Now you have to find the value of A. So I'm taking the first pair. When price is 4, the quantity supply is 100. So I'm taking these two pairs, right? So when the quantity supply is 100, so I'm substituting the 100 here. You have to calculate the A value. The slope is already mentioned, already calculated as 50. Now the price is 4. So 50 into 4, 200. So if you take this 200 to the side, that is equal to minus 100. So here, respect to this table, the value of the A is equal to minus 100. So at last, we have derived the supply formula, that is 100 minus, that is minus 100 plus 50p. So your supply equation is minus 100 plus 50p. So we'll move to the next one. Here, not like the demand equation. In the supply equation, value of A can be, the value of A can differ. In the supply equation, value of A can be positive, negative, or it can be 0. But in the demand equation, always the value of A is positive. But in the supply equation, the value of A can be positive, or it can be negative, or it can be 0. If the value of A is positive, then the supply curve will start from the quantity axis. If the value of A is negative, then the supply curve will start from the price axis. If the value of A is 0, then supply curve will start from the origin, right? Then the supply curve will start from the origin. Right, okay. So if you want, you can show this, you can illustrate this. Yes. Yes. Now I'm going to draw a supply curve. And I said that always the supply curve is an upward sloping curve. I said that always the supply curve is an also upward sloping curve, and this axis stands for the price and this axis stands for the quantity demand. Now I'm going to draw a supply curve. Now I'm going to draw a supply curve which starts from the origin. Now here, this is your 0. Now the supply curve is starting from origin. Now, or the supply curve can start from the price axis also. The supply curve start from here also. Or else, the supply curve can start from the quantity axis also. The supply curve can start from the quantity axis also. So here you must remember if the value of A is, if the value of A is, if the value of A is taking, if the value of the A is taking a negative value, then the supply curve will start from the price axis. If the value of A is equal to 0, then it will start from the price axis. Here, if the value of A is equal to a positive value, if the value of A is equal to a positive number, then it is starting from the quantity axis. It is starting from the quantity axis. Right. Now, with this, we'll move to the next topic of the lesson. That is the quantity supply change and the supply change. That is quantity supply change and the supply change. So again, for this purpose, I'm drawing the supply curve. Okay, first we'll discuss about the quantity supply change. Here you have to assume that the price of the particular good remain. The price of the particular good is changing. All the other factors remain constant. Only the price of the particular goods this is your quantity supply axis, and here this is your supply curve. It is always a upward sloping curve. It is always a upward sloping curve, and you know that this is your price axis, and you know that this is your quantity supply axis, and this is your supply curve, and this is your supply curve. Right, okay. Now I'm going to mark a price here. Yes. Here, this is the price of this particular product. When the price is at here, the quantity supply is at here. Right. So you can give a value for this. You can give a price here. We'll say the price is 40 rupees. Respect to this price, the suppliers are ready to supply, we'll say 75 units. The suppliers are ready to supply 75 units. Now, the price of the product is increasing. Now, the price of the product is increasing. Right. If the price of the product increases like this, then you know that there is a positive relationship between price and the quantity supply. Then the producers are ready to supply more. That means, Uma, your price is increasing. So the quantity supply is also increasing. So your quantity supply is also increasing. It is showing a positive relationship. This is simply identified as expansion in the supply, in supply expansion. So suppose if the price is decreasing, suppose if the price is decreasing, suppose if the price is decreasing like this, then you know that there is a positive relationship between price and the quantity supply. Then the price is decreasing, so the supply is also decreasing. So this is called the supply contraction. That means the supply is decreasing. Here, when the price increases, the quantity supply is also increasing. Here, when the price decreases, the quantity supply is also decreasing. So this is the simple idea of the change in quantity supply. This is the simple idea of the change in quantity supply. So to illustrate the change in quantity supply, it's very important to move the point along the supply curve. The point is moving along the supply curve. Then to illustrate the change in quantity supply, if you have only one supply curve, it's enough. So this is the change in quantity supply. Now we'll move to the next one, that is change in supply. The next one is the change in supply. Right. Right. Now we'll move to the change in supply. Again, I'm drawing a supply curve. So here, the shiftness of the supply curve to the right or to the left, to the right or to the left is identified as change in supply. It is identified as change in supply. At this point, you have to assume any one of other determinant is changing while the price remain constant. While the price remain constant. So here you have to assume when you're explaining the change in supply, you have to assume that price of the particular good remain constant. It is not changing. So the price remain constant. Okay, we'll assume the price as, and you know that this is your price axis, and you know that this is your quantity supply axis, and you know we'll say we'll give a price for this. We'll say the price is 50. It is not changing. When the price is 50, the quantity supply is, we'll say 100 units. We'll say quantity supply is 100 units. Now, and you know this is your supply curve. And you know this is your supply curve. Right. Now, there's no change in the price. The price remain constant. Only any other determinant, any one of other determinant is changing. For an example, the cost of production can increase or decrease. So therefore, the supply curve can shift like this, or it can shift like this. The supply curve can shift to the upward, or it can shift to the downward, or it can shift to the left, or it can shift to the right. So here, there's no change in the, there's no change in the price. The price remain constant. It is still 50, but here the demand is decreased. At here, the demand is increasing. At this situation, the demand is increasing. You see, you can very clearly see that. But no change in the price. But there's no change in the price. At this situation, the supply is decreasing. At this situation, the supply is increasing. That means what's happening here? Here, the demand curve is shifting to the left. Here, the demand curve is shifting to the downward. So here, supply curve. Here, the supply curve is shifting to the upward. Here, the supply curve is shifting to the downward. So at this situation, the supply is decreasing from 100 to, if you want, you can give a value here. From 100 to, we'll say it is decreasing as 75. So you can give a value to this also. We'll say from 100 to, it is increasing as 125. So here, no change in the price. Due to the change of another determinant except price, the supply is decreasing or the supply is increasing. For an example, the cost of production or the price of the inputs is decreasing, right? So therefore, what will happen? If the cost of production decreases, then you can increase. The suppliers will increase the supply furthermore, but no change in the price. So the supply curve is shifting to the right, downward. So from 100 to 125 units, the supply is increasing. Suppose if the production cost is increasing, then the supply curve will shift to left like this. So therefore, the supply is decreasing from 100 to 75. So it is showing a downfall in the supply while the price remains constant. So this situation is identified as the change in supply. This is identified as the change in supply. Then if you want to illustrate, if you want to explain the change in supply, definitely you need more than one supply curve. Definitely you need more than one supply curve. Right. I think the difference between the supply change and quantity supply change is clear. Right. Right. Yes, again, we are going back to the slides. Yes, now we'll see the factors which shift the supply curve to the right and the factors which shift the supply curve to the left. Now, these are the factors which shift the supply curve to the right. Decrease in the price of related good, decrease in the cost of production, development in technology, increase in number of buyers, cutoff of government taxes, providing subsidies, and expecting a future price reduction. These are the reasons which lead to shift the supply curve to the right. That means it lead to increase the supply while price remain constant. So here, the factors which shift the supply curve to the left. So here, increase in the price of related goods, increase in the cost of production. If there is an increase in the cost of production, in the graph I explained that the supply curve will shift to the left. There is the downfall in the supply, and using outdated technology, decrease in number of suppliers, increase in government taxes, cut off of the subsidies, and if the producers are expecting there will be an increase in the price for their particular product, then they will reduce the supply. Right, okay, so I think the factors which lead to shift the supply curve to the right as well as to the left are clear. Now, Here, I have mentioned you, I have given you some questions. I have given you some practice questions. You all can try these questions. Yes. In our today's session, we have discussed about the theory of demand as well as the theory of supply. Right. So in this session, we have discussed about the concept of demand and the supply. Now, I think you all can define the demand as well as the supply. And we explained or we discussed the determinants of demand as well as the supply. And we derived the demand and supply functions. Furthermore, we discuss about the law of demand as well as the law of supply. And we discussed the methods to illustrate the law of demand and the supply. We discuss about the demand and the supply tables and how to draw the demand curve as well as the supply curve. And we discuss how to derive or how to construct the demand equation as well as the supply equations. And furthermore, we discuss about the demand change and the quantity demand change. Same like that, we discuss about the change in supply as well as the change in quantity supply. And I explained you how to illustrate those changes by using graphs. And we discuss the reasons or the factors which lead to shift the demand curve to the left and to the right, and the supply curve to the right and to the left. Right. So you all can try all these questions. If you have any doubts, you can contact me or you can send a message. Yes, my dear students, thank you very much for your concentration and participation. And a special thanks to Nana Power Foundation, those who gave me this great opportunity. Then have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, madam. කියන්න ඕනේ නැනපවුරු නිර්මාතෘ ප්‍රභාත් නයිද චිලකරත්න සර්ගේ සංකල්පයක් යටතේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වන මෙම වැඩසටහන සඳහා සියලුම පාසල්වල ආචාර්ය මණ්ඩලය නැනපවුරු ෆවුන්ඩේෂන් එකත් එක්ක ඉන්නවා. එතුමා විසින් උසස් පෙළ වගේම සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ විෂය ධාරාවල සියලුම විෂයන් සඳහා සිංහල, ඉංග්‍රීසි, දමිළ යන මාධ්‍ය තුනෙන්ම දේශන සංවිධානය කර ඇති බව සතුටින් කියන්න කැමතියි. ඔබට ඉදිරි දේශන පිළිවෙල දැන ගැනීම සඳහා අපේ Telegram group එකට සම්බන්ධ විය හැකියි. group එකේ link එක දැන ගැනීමට 0717 725 735 කියන ආයෙත් මම කියන්නම් 0717 යන දුරකථන අංකයට ටෙලිග්‍රෑම් ඔස්සේ මැසේජ් එකක් දාන්න. ඒ වගේම අද දින සම්බන්ධ වීමට නොහැකි ඔබේ යාළුවෝ එහෙලී ඉන්නා නම් සමෙන් පාඩම කිසියම් මොදයක් අතපසු වී තියෙනවා නම් අපේ නැනපවුරු YouTube channel එක ඔස්සේ ඔබට නැරඹිය හැකියි. අපේ YouTube channel එක subscribe කරන්න, comment කරන්න, share කරන්න, like කරන්න අමතක කරන්න එපා. ඒ වගේම කියන්න ඕනේ අපේ YouTube, අපේ Instagram account එකත් follow කරන්න. එහෙනම් අපිට මෙම හරවත් දේශනය පැවැත්වූ පෙරෝසා බානු මිස්ටර් අපේ හදපිරි ස්තුතිය ප්‍රකාශ කරන අතර අපි තවත් දේශනයකින් හමු වෙමු. Thank you so much.
being a chartered engineer, acquiring membership from certified management accountants supported me immensely to become a chief executive officer of a reputed company. CME is not only producing professional certified accountants, they have been developing their skills through continuous professional development programs. CMA is keen to develop their communication skills as well through their CMA program.
CMA, for creating the pathway to being a world-recognized